Welcome to African Folktales by Mozzie. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification. Then listen well, for this is a story the elders still whisper at night. It is a story of fear, courage, and a child whose heart was stronger than stone. Long before the tallest trees grew old, there stood a village called Luma. Resting between a wide river and a deep forest, the people of Luma believed no child could carry the weight of the world. They believed children were meant to laugh, run, and sleep without worrying. But on one terrible night, they learned they were wrong. She was just a child when she stood before the fire. Her feet were bare. Her hands trembled, yet she did not step back. In her small hands was a sharp stone blade. Fresh blood stained her fingers and fell onto the dry earth. The elders gasped. Warriors turned their faces away. Mothers cried and held their children close. She is too young, they whispered. This should not be her burden. But the child lifted her head. Her name was Zola, and she was only 12 reigns old. If I do not do this, she said softly, our village will not see another season. The fire cracked loudly. The wind fell silent, and everyone knew something terrible and powerful was about to happen. Before fear came, Luma was a happy place. Every morning, smoke rose gently from cooking fires. Women pounded millet while singing old songs. Men went to the forest to hunt, and to the river to fish. Children chased one another between the huts, laughing until their voices grew tired. Zola lived with her mother, Nari, and her little brother, Keem. Their hut stood near the edge of the village, close to the forest path. Zola helped her mother each day. She fetched water, cleaned grains, and carried Keem on her back when he cried. Zola was quiet, but her eyes noticed everything. She saw how birds moved before rain. She felt when the air grew heavy for no reason. Elders said she listened like someone much older. Still, she was only a child. She feared thunder. She hated the dark. She dreamed of simple things, warm food, safe nights, and her mother smiled. No one knew that the forest already knew her. No one knew the river watched her steps, and no one believed that soon, this same child would be the only one standing between Luma and destruction. The trouble did not come all at once. It crept in slowly, like a sickness. First, the river fish disappeared. Fishermen returned with empty nets and worried faces. They said the water felt wrong, thick and cold. Then the crops began to fail. Millet stalks bent and dried too early. Cassava roots turned bitter. Even after rain, the soil cracked like old skin. At night, strange sounds came from the forest. Not the cries of animals, but something deeper. Something heavy. Dogs barked until their throats grew sore. Babies woke screaming from sleep. The elders gathered under the great baobab tree. Baba Taro, the oldest man in Luma, tapped his staff against the ground. The land is angry, he said, or something beneath it is. That evening, Zola went alone to the river to fetch water. The sun was low, and the river was dark and still. As she bent down, a cold wind touched her neck. Then a voice rose from the water. Child of Luma, it whispered. Your village is in danger. Zola froze, her hands tied around the clay pot. The river began to ripple, though no stone had touched it. The voice grew deeper, older than any elder. A promise was broken, it said. A guardian was disturbed. Zola's heart beat hard, but she did not run. Who are you? She asked, her voice shaking. I am the river that remembers, the voice replied. Suddenly, Zola saw visions. Men digging deep into sacred ground. A great stone cracked apart. Fire burning where it should not burn. She felt pain that was not hers. The guardian wakes with hunger, the river said. When the moon grows thin, it will come. Zola fell to her knees. How can we stop it? The water glowed faintly. Only a pure heart may face what is coming, it said. Only a child who will give what others fear to give. The glow faded. The river went still. Zola ran home, breathless and afraid. She told no one. Who would believe a child who said the river spoke? That night, she dreamed of fire, blood, and a shadow rising from the earth. The days that followed were heavy with fear. The howling from the forest grew closer. The river smelled sour. One morning, a goat was found dead with no wounds, its eyes wide with terror. The elders made offerings. They burned herbs and poured palm wine onto the ground. Nothing changed. Zola watched in silence. She remembered the river's words. Only a child. Her chest tightened whenever she looked at her little brother playing in the dust. One evening, She followed Babatero as he walked toward an old broken stone near the forest edge. It was cracked down the middle and half buried in earth. "We should never have touched this," the old man whispered. Zola stepped forward. Babatero turned, startled. His eyes widened. "You heard the river," he said slowly. Zola nodded. "It told me what must be done." The old man's face grew pale. "No," he whispered. "That price is too high." But Zola already knew the truth. And deep inside her small chest, she felt it settle like a stone. If the village was to live, she would have to be the one to pay. But Zola already knew the truth. And deep inside her small chest, she felt it settle like a stone. If the village was to live, she would have to be the one to pay. Zola did not sleep that night. She lay on her mat, listening to the sounds of the village. Dogs whimpered. The wind moved through the huts like a warning. Her mother slept lightly beside Keen, her breathing slow but uneasy. At dawn, Zola rose quietly and went to the river again. The water was lower now. Rocks that were once hidden showed their sharp backs. She knelt and touched the surface. "I am here," she whispered. The river answered at once. "You have returned, child." Zola swallowed. "Tell me what the guardian is." The water darkened. "It is older than your village. It was placed here to protect the land. When the sacred stone was broken, its sleep was ended." "Why me?" Zola asked. "Because your hands have taken no life. Because your heart is clean." Zola felt tears rise. "What must I give?" There was a long silence. Then the river spoke. "Blood freely offered binds the guardian. Pain chosen seals the promise." Zola's hand shook. "Will it save my people?" "Yes," the river said. "But you will never be the same." Zola stood slowly. The morning sun touched her face. She knew now there was no turning back. The first attack came 3 nights later. The moon was thin like a broken bowl. The wind howled as if chased. From the forest came a deep sound, half growl, half thunder. Trees shook. Huts trembled. People ran screaming into the open space near the baobab tree. Children cried. Mothers prayed. Then the ground cracked. A massive shadow rose near the broken stone. It had no clear shape, only burning eyes and a body made of darkness and dust. Wherever it moved, the earth died. "The guardian," Babatero whispered in fear. Hunters threw spears, but the spears fell uselessly. Fire did nothing. The shadow roared and turned back toward the forest, leaving broken land behind. At dawn, the village counted its losses. Fields destroyed. Animals gone. Fear everywhere. Zola stood quietly among them. Her heart pounded, but her mind was clear. She went to the elders and bowed. "The river has spoken," she said. Babatero looked at her with sorrow. "You know the price?" Zola nodded. "I do." A long silence followed. Finally, the old man spoke. "Prepare the fire," he said. "The child will face the guardian." Word spread through the village like smoke. Some people cried. Others shouted in anger. "She is just a child. This is wrong." Zola's mother, Nari, held her tight. "You will not go," she said fiercely. "I will not lose you." Zola touched her mother's face gently. "If I do not go, we lose everyone," she said. That afternoon, the elders prepared the sacred place near the baobab tree. A fire was built high. Drums were placed around it. The broken stone lay nearby, silent and cracked. Zola washed herself in the river as the sun fell. She tied a simple cloth around her waist. She took the stone blade Babatero gave her. It was sharp and cold. As night came, the village gathered. No one sang. No one spoke loudly. The drums beat slowly, like a heart. Zola stepped forward alone. The fire burned bright. The wind died. "She is too small," someone sobbed. Zola raised her hands. The blade caught the firelight. Her breath shook, but her feet did not move. She closed her eyes and remembered the river's words. The forest went silent. Even insects stopped their song. Zola stepped closer to the fire. Heat burned her skin, but she did not flinch. She lifted the stone blade. Her hands trembled for only a moment. Then she pressed the blade against her palm. Blood flowed, red and warm. It dripped onto the cracked stone below. Gasps filled the air. Mothers screamed. Warriors turned away. Zola cried out, but she did not stop. She let the blood fall freely, just as the river commanded. Pain tore through her arm, sharp and deep. The ground shook. A roar rose from the forest. The guardian returned, larger than before. It moved toward the fire, drawn by the offering. Zola fell to her knees, but held her bleeding hand high. "I give this freely," she cried. "Spare my people." The guardian stopped, its burning eyes fixed on her. Slowly, it sank into the ground near the broken stone. The earth closed around it like water. The fire died down. The wind returned softly. Zola collapsed. Her blood soaked the earth, but the land was still, and the guardian was gone. Morning came gently, as if afraid to wake the village. Birds returned to the trees. The air felt lighter. When people stepped outside, they saw green shoots pushing through the soil where the guardian had walked. Zola lay in her mother's arms, weak but breathing. Her hand was wrapped tightly. She opened her eyes slowly. "It is over," Baba Taro said softly. The river flowed clear again. Fish returned. Crops began to heal. The forest grew quiet and safe. Zola survived, but she was changed. The spirits had marked her. She no longer played like other children. She listened to the land and spoke little. The elders taught the village new laws. No sacred stone would ever be broken again. No promise to the land would be forgotten. At night, elders told the story to the children. "Remember Zola," they said. "She was just a child, yet she gave what others feared to give." Zola grew older, but her name never faded, and that is why, even today, the people of Luma bow to the river, respect the forest, and teach their children that courage does not come from strength but from the heart. Weeks passed. Yet the village did not forget that night. Even though the guardian was gone, shadows lingered. Some villagers whispered that it had not left entirely, that it slept beneath the earth, watching. Zola tried to return to her normal life, but it was impossible. Every time she touched the soil, she felt a hum of power beneath her fingertips. Every time she walked by the river, she heard a faint voice, reminding her of the price she had paid. Children were drawn to her. They wanted to hear the story, to touch her hands, to feel a fragment of the courage she had shown. Zola's mother watched silently. Pride and fear battled in her chest. "She is no longer my little girl," Nari whispered to herself. "She belongs partly to the river, partly to the forest, and partly to the spirits we cannot see." Even the hunters avoided the forest now, leaving paths clear for Zola. She walked among the trees and listened to their whispers. She spoke to birds, and they did not fly away. She touched the roots of ancient trees, and they trembled in greeting. Luma had survived, but the child who saved it was no longer ordinary, and the villagers began to realize that courage sometimes comes in the smallest hands. One evening, the village elders gathered around the baobab tree. Their voices were low, filled with worrying. "The guardian is gone." "Yes," Baba Taro said, "but it will not stay silent forever. It sleeps beneath the earth, and it remembers the broken promise." Zola knelt nearby, listening. Her small hands rested on her lap. "What must we do?" she asked. Baba Taro looked at her, eyes filled with respect and fear. "We must teach the children. Teach them respect. Teach them that the land and water are alive. That promises broken bring great danger." Zola nodded. She felt the weight of their words. Though she was still only 12 reigns old, she knew she carried more than a child's duty. She carried the memory of the guardian, the pain of her own blood, and the responsibility for the village's safety. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying a quiet warning. That night, Zola walked to the river alone. She dipped her hand into the water and felt its heartbeat. The river did not speak this time, but it hummed softly, as if approving. Zola understood. She would remain the village's protector, even if no one could see the magic that now pulsed in her veins. The next morning, hunters returned to the forest to check traps. They spoke in whispers, glancing over their shoulders. Something had changed. Birds circled above, watching them with eyes too bright to be ordinary. Zola followed at a distance. She felt the pulse of the earth beneath her feet. Trees seemed to bend slightly, making way for her. She knew the guardian had not returned, but the forest itself had awakened because of her courage. A small boy ran toward her, holding a broken basket. "Zola," he said, "the trees. They are moving." Zola smiled gently. "Not moving. They are breathing, listening, watching." The boy's eyes grew wide. "Is it the guardian?" "No," Zola said softly. "It is the forest. It has learned to trust us." Because we remembered, when they returned to the village, Zola told no one of the encounter. She only warned the children to respect the land, the river, and all creatures, for power comes in many forms and the forest rewards those who honor it. The elders nodded from afar. They could see the truth in her eyes. She had changed, And so had the village, and somewhere deep in the earth, a shadow slept, waiting for the next promise to be kept. Months passed, and life returned to a quiet rhythm. Crops grew, the river teemed with fish, children played in the dust. Yet Luma never forgot the night the child saved them. Zola became a figure of awe. She helped the elders, guided children, and walked through the forest without fear. Animals followed her like friends, birds resting on her shoulders, and even snakes slithered past her feet. Harmless and calm, one day, a traveling merchant arrived, carrying exotic goods and rumors from faraway lands. He had heard whispers of a village saved by a child. Is it true? He asked the villagers, his eyes bright. A child alone stopped a spirit. The elders nodded, hesitant, careful not to exaggerate. Zola stood behind them, small and quiet. The merchant's eyes fell on her. He gasped, "That child," he said, almost to himself. "Yes," Baba Taro said. "She is small, but she carries the courage of 100 warriors. She saved us all." The merchant bowed low. Stories like this, they are remembered for generations. Zola smiled faintly. She did not need praise. She only needed the village to survive, the river to remain calm, and the forest to stay safe. And she knew, deep inside, that one day, the forest would test her again. That evening, Zola went to the broken stone near the forest edge. The firelight flickered across her small face. She touched the stone gently, remembering the night of sacrifice. The wind whispered through the trees, and she felt a shiver run down her spine. She knelt and pressed her hand to the cracked surface. "Guardian," she whispered softly, I remember the promise we broke, and I give this blood so that the village may live." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground rumbled faintly. Leaves stirred. A soft growl echoed from deep within the forest. Zola's heart beat fast. She could feel the presence of the guardian watching, listening. Not angry, but waiting. She rose and faced the village. Lights glimmered from the huts, and she saw mothers and children looking toward her. She felt their trust, their hope. Even if fear returned, she would be ready. She would be the child who faced what no adult could. And the forest, in quiet approval, hummed softly around her, as if acknowledging that courage, when pure, can shape the world. The night had come, black and silent except for the soft wind through the trees. The villagers gathered near the baobab tree, holding torches, their faces pale with fear. Zola stepped forward, small but determined. Her stone blade glinted in the firelight, and her hand trembled only slightly. The elders stayed back, whispering prayers, but no one dared come closer. From the forest came a deep rumble, low and rolling, shaking the earth beneath their feet. Leaves and dust rose like a dark cloud. The shadow appeared at the edge of the firelight. Its eyes glowed red, and its form shifted like smoke in the wind. The villagers froze. Some dropped to their knees. Mothers clutched their children. Even the hunters lowered their spears, knowing that no weapon could harm what approached. Zola took a deep breath. "I am here," she said, her voice small but clear. "I give myself, not to fight, but to bind you. Spare my people. Spare my village." The shadow paused, tilting its head as if it could understand her words. The air grew heavier, thick with unseen power, and then the guardian stepped closer, drawn to the courage of a child. Zola knelt before the fire, holding the stone blade tight. She pressed her palm against it and let the blood flow freely. Pain tore through her hand, but she did not cry. She only whispered, "For the village. For life." The ground trembled beneath her knees. The guardian's eyes glowed brighter, and a deep growl rolled across the clearing. It moved closer, circling her like a predator, yet stopping just short of the fire. The villagers held their breath. Some wept, some prayed quietly. Even Baba Taro, the oldest elder, could not look directly at the child's act. Zola's small body shook, but her heart did not. She knew the power of giving freely. She knew that fear alone could not save the village. Courage had to face pain. Even when the body screamed to stop, the guardian lunged forward suddenly, and the villagers gasped. But instead of striking, it sniffed the blood, paused, and then lowered its massive head. Zola lifted her eyes slowly. The fire reflected in the guardian's glowing eyes. And in that moment, she knew her act was being accepted. The shadow's growl softened, becoming a low rumble, almost like a whisper. The village could still be saved if she continued. The guardian circled Zola once more, closer this time, shaking the earth with each step. Its massive form stretched higher than 2 men, and yet it did not attack. Instead, it tested her resolve. Zola pressed her palm to the cracked stone again, letting more blood fall freely. The pain burned, but she clenched her jaw. Her small hands were red, dripping onto the earth, and the villagers watched in stunned silence. "This is enough," one mother whispered. "It's too much for a child." But Zola ignored them. She felt the power of the river inside her, the hum of the forest. She felt the guardian's anger and fear, its longing and its sorrow. The shadow lowered itself closer to her, its glowing eyes locked on her. She knew the creature could sense her heart, that it could feel the innocence, the willingness to sacrifice, and the love she bore for her village. Slowly, Zola stood, dripping with blood, her gaze unwavering. She spoke clearly, the words cutting through the night. "I offer myself so that my village lives. Take my pain, take my fear, but leave my people unharmed." For a heartbeat, the world was still. Then the guardian knelt, bowing its massive head toward her. The villagers could hardly believe their eyes. The air grew still. Even the wind seemed to pause, waiting. The guardian's glowing eyes softened, no longer filled with rage, but with a deep understanding. It circled the fire slowly, examining the child who dared to give herself. Zola trembled, exhausted, but she held the stone blade high. She whispered, "I have given all I can. Let this end. Let life return." The guardian stopped at the cracked stone. Its massive form pressed against the earth, and slowly, it began to sink into the soil. Dust rose in a great cloud as the shadow disappeared, leaving only the sound of distant thunder fading away. The villagers were speechless. They stepped closer cautiously, staring at the blood-stained ground where Zola had knelt. She fell to her knees, drained and weak, but alive. Her mother rushed forward, wrapping her small arms around her. Tears streamed down faces of young and old alike. You saved us," Baba Taro whispered, bowing low. "You, a child, faced the guardian alone." Zola shivered but smiled faintly. "The river spoke the truth," she said. "Courage is not in size or strength. It is in giving what others fear to give." The first bird chirped in the morning air. Slowly, life returned to the village. Morning broke gently over Luma. The fire was now only embers, and the forest seemed calmer. Birds returned to the trees, and the river flowed smoothly once more, its water shining under the sun. The villagers came out of their huts, still wide-eyed, still shaking. They looked at Zola with awe, some whispering, some bowing low. Mothers hugged their children tightly, grateful beyond words. Zola stood quietly, her small hands still marked with blood, her chest rising and falling with exhaustion. She had given everything and survived. She had faced a force the elders had feared for generations. Baba Taro approached her slowly, leaning on his staff. "You have done what no adult could," he said, voice trembling. "Luma lives because of you." Zola nodded. "It is done," she whispered. The forest seemed to hum in agreement. Trees swayed gently. The wind carried a soft song. Even the river sparkled, as if washing away the memory of fear. From that day on, the villagers remembered the night a child stood where adults could not, and they whispered it to every generation. She was just a child, yet she saved us all. Weeks turned into months, and Luma slowly healed. Crops grew taller than before, and the river teemed with fish. Birds returned to nests long abandoned. The villagers rebuilt the huts damaged by the guardian's first arrival, this time stronger and brighter. Zola stayed quiet, walking among the people without pride or boast. Children followed her, whispering questions about the night she saved the village. Did the shadow return? One asked. Zola smiled faintly. "It sleeps now. But courage can wake even the strongest sleep." Elders nodded. They had seen many seasons, but never had a child face the guardian and survive. Her bravery became a story they told quietly by the fire, repeating it slowly so the magic of her courage lived forever. Zola's mother, Nari, watched her carefully. "You carry the river in your veins now," she said softly. "You belong partly to the forest." Zola only nodded, understanding fully. She had changed, but she was at peace. And in every shadow, every tree, and every wave of the river, the people of Luma felt her courage, alive and protective. One day, a young boy ran to Zola with a frightened look. "The forest is restless," he cried. Zola took his hand and led him to the river bank. The water glimmered like silver under the sun, calm and steady. "The forest tests us," Zola said. "It remembers the broken stone, the guardian, and the promise. Respect keeps it safe. Fear and anger awaken it. The villagers gathered and watched as Zola spoke. Her voice, though small, carried authority. She taught them to listen to the trees, the animals, and the river. Even the hunters paused, lowering their spears. Zola guided them in tending to the forest, planting trees, and leaving offerings for the spirits. Over time, children learned the same lessons. The village became wise, not just brave. The forest became part of their lives, and they never forgot that courage sometimes comes in the smallest hands. And Zola, though still a child, had become a teacher, a guardian of Luma, and a bridge between humans and the spirit world. Years passed, and Zola grew taller, but she remained humble. She walked among the villagers, guiding them gently, teaching them courage, respect, and love. The river, now calm and clear, sometimes whispered her name at night, reminding her of the blood she had offered, the pain she had endured, and the life she had saved. Travelers came from faraway lands to hear the story. They saw a child who had faced a guardian, a force of the forest, alone, and survived. Such courage, they whispered. Such wisdom in a small body. Zola would only smile and point to the river. "It is not just me," she said. "The village, the forest, the river, they all helped. Courage is shared." The villagers celebrated her not with gold, but with song, dance, and stories around the fire. Every child knew her name. Every elder respected her voice, and Luma thrived. Safe under the watch of a child who had become more than a child, a living legend, remembered forever. One night, under a full moon, Zola stood at the river's edge. The wind carried a soft song. She closed her eyes and let the air brush her face. "I am still small," she whispered, "but I have grown in ways I never imagined." The river shimmered. The forest swayed. Somewhere beneath the soil, the guardian slept peacefully. Zola smiled, knowing that her courage had made the difference. She returned to the village, where families slept under calm skies. Children dreamed of brave deeds, and elders whispered her story softly, so it would echo for generations. Zola knew she had changed. Her hands still bore the mark of sacrifice, her heart still carried the weight of responsibility. But she had learned that fear could be overcome, that love could protect, and that even a child could change the fate of many. The people of Luma never forgot her, and the village thrived in harmony with the river, the forest, and each other. And the legend of the girl who saved Luma was told again and again, with wonder, awe, and respect. Generations later, children of Luma grew up hearing the story of a small child who faced a guardian alone, who bled to save the village, and whose courage bound the spirits and the forest to the people. They learned that true bravery is not measured by size or strength, but by the willingness to act when all others fear. They learned to honor the land, respect the river, and cherish the bonds of family and community. Zola became a symbol, a reminder that the smallest among us can hold the greatest power, that sacrifice can save countless lives, and that love and courage can bind worlds together. Even when Zola grew old, people still whispered her name with awe, the child who faced darkness and stood unbroken. And every time the wind rustled through the trees, every time the river sparkled under the sun, the people of Luma remembered she was just a child. What she did to save the village shocked everyone. The village thrived forever, carrying the lesson of courage, sacrifice, and heart in every generation that followed.